I figured it's a perfect time through 4 games. Both teams have had 2 home games. It's a perfect time to kind of just sit back and say, what have we learned in this series through the last 4 games? So, Dave, I pose that question to you. We're through 4. The series is tied at 2. You've had a blowout from either side so far in this game, so far in this series. Like, what have you learned about either team? But, what have you learned about the Maple Leafs, I guess, more specifically?
It's really hard to gauge the play in some cases because there's been so much time spent, on special teams that neither team has at times hasn't really been able to get much of a rhythm going at 5-on-5. The special teams have really dominated this series. Maybe it's not something I'm surprised about, but I did not expect it to get to this point where we've seen teams, Tampa get 8 power plays in a game, or the Leafs, even as good as they've been shorthanded, that's probably one of those things. And then the other thing really is we're seeing some of the trends carry over from past years where the star players have not been terrible, but they haven't been good enough for the Leafs, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that one wholeheartedly. So we'll kind of start with those two, and then we can kind of keep dissecting this because there's a couple other things that I feel like I've learned as well. But yeah, there's been a lot of. It's been a very undisciplined series so far, and I think both teams got to clean it up, both at Tampa and Toronto. Because if you look at it, I can look at a stat sheet, not even look at the goals, just look at literally the stat sheet and see how many penalties one team has taken and how many power plays the team has been awarded, and I could probably tell you who won that game. Because that's really been a massive difference between winning and losing is what team has spent more time in the box. And that's been a big part of this thing. And it also kind of goes with the star players not getting it going because a guy like Austin Matthews, who is it's your best player, you take 8 penalties like you did in game 4, that's, you know, all that power play time that you're giving to Tampa, you don't have your star player out on the ice because Austin Matthews doesn't kill penalties. It's not that he can't kill penalties, by the way. I've seen a lot of people saying, like, oh, how could you call Austin Matthews the best player in the world? He doesn't even kill penalties. It's not that he can't. It's just that you don't need him to. You don't want him getting hurt. You want to keep him for the offensive stuff. And it's just a way to manage minutes, ultimately. But that's an aside. But ultimately, when you're spending so much time in the box, you're spending so much time shorthanded, you're keeping your stars off the ice. And it seems like it's really gotten them out of a rhythm. And then when they get there, Kevin BX did a good job of highlighting that he was fumbling the puck in the first period in game 4 and wasn't as crisp as he typically is. It's because he's not really getting his touch. He's not getting out on the ice because he's spending a lot of it glued to the bench watching the PK go to work. Luckily, the penalty kill has been decent so far, but it has, killed them in a game 2 specifically. Not as much last night. They were 7 for 8, but still, it's throwing off the rhythm of those star players. And ultimately, what I've learned is those guys got to get going. Like, absolutely, those guys need to get going. Specifically, Matthews, Marner, but also Tavares and Nylander. Like, that's the big thing, right? The depth is getting it done. Like, they're deep enough to compete, and the team they can win with Jack Campbell in net. That's something that I think I've learned as well. We've seen Campbell steal a game. We've seen the depth come up big and steal a game. That game 3, that's Campbell and the depth. They stole you one. The Stars need to go out and get the other 3. They got one in game 1. Now they got to go out and get 2 of the next 3. And to do that, these guys got to start performing, man. It's for those two, Matthews and Marner in particular, to go through a 2 games in a row now where they've been so ineffective is just you can't win with that. You really can't win with that. I have a couple of statistics that are pretty glaring, actually. When Matthews and Marner are locked up against Sorelli, Point, and Killorn through games 3 and 4, they've been outshot 6-1, outchanced 9-0, and have an expected goals percentage of 4.8%. Not good enough, my friend. Not good enough. So those guys got to get going.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. Like what's interesting is that I thought Tavares and Neander were better in that third period. Like we saw with the 2 goals, But I saw Tavares really pushing it. Like as much flack as he's been taking from the fan base, from the media, from a lot of people, it's not from a lack of effort for this guy. We kind of touched on this with Sheldon Keefe's comments on it too. He's pushing, he's trying. Marner, I'll give him this. He's playing a lot on the penalty kill. So
Yep.
a lot of his energy is being spent there. And I feel like this is where I would want, you know what, you can have him on the penalty kill, but you gotta watch his minutes there because he needs to be effective at 5-on-5. He's in it tough with Cirelli, Point, and Killorn, which that's a good line. That's a really good line. But Matthews, Marner, and whoever's on that line should be better. They're paid to be better. They're paid to get the chances. They just have to figure it out. Like that simply put, they have to figure it out. When I
Yep.
saw Austin Matthews in game 2 and the Leafs were down, pretty much tell Ryan McDonough, I'm taking this puck. You're not gonna have much of a say about it. Feed Marner, feed Bunting for that goal. That's what you need to see from Matthews and Marner to be successful in this series. It's not going to come easy for them, but it's not supposed to. That's the playoffs for you. You got to make your chances. You got to make your breaks.
Yeah.
Not seeing that from them.
Yeah. I've also seen some, like, obviously Tavares' plays, it's concerning. We saw them show some good trends, I guess, towards the end of the period, like you alluded to. But I've seen some very kind of irrational, we need to buy this guy out
Yeah,
conversation. So I'm not gonna. I guess I am entertaining it. I'm not actually entertaining it, but I'm gonna tell you why I'm shutting it down right away.
yeah.
I was looking into it. Do you know how much cap savings they would have for the next 3 years if they were to buy out John Tavares?
Little to nothing because guess what? He's paying a lot in bonuses.
He would be a cap savings of $606,000.
Yeah.
606,000. That's it. So even if you buy him out, you are still paying 10.3, basically 10.4 million of cap for the next 3 years, and then it drops off after that. But for the next 3 years, while he's still, the 3 years remaining on his actual deal, you're not saving anything, man. You don't even get a full contract worth of savings. So that's a conversation that can completely go out the wayside. This contract is not, it is buyout proof. Absolutely buyout proof. So if that was entering your mind, I probably would tell
One
you,
ear and out the other, gentlemen.
yeah,
That's where he's going.
don't even think about it because it's not happening. And I don't want it to happen either. Like,
No.
deep down, like, he's still a decent player. Don't get me wrong. He does a lot of good things. He was what, like 90% on the faceoff draws the other day. Like, there are things that he does that is good, but he has not been good enough. He has not
No.
earned his contract. And anybody, even John, says that himself. He knows he hasn't been good enough. It needs to be better. Tonight's a chance for him to go and do it because at the end of the day, actions speak louder than words. You can tell us that you need to be better, but until you do it, there's still going to be all that scrutiny on you. But unfortunately for the Maple Leafs, they're not getting out of that deal. Plus, he's their captain. I doubt they buy him out, even if it was a little bit easier and there might be a couple million in cap savings. I doubt they entertain that anyways. One other thing that I've learned so far, David, Jake Muzzin, good player.
Jake Muzzin proven to be Jake Muzzin that we were expecting to see, right?
We were
And I think
hoping, we were hoping to see.
and I think he's been better than what we've seen from him the last few years. Like,
Yeah,
if you're looking at this sample size of the 4 games, this has been, I think, the most effective Jake Muzzin since he's come to Toronto.
perhaps.
He's adding the offensive punch that we weren't expecting to see. He's hitting, like he's bringing that physical edge that we were kind of hoping to see, and he didn't really see it right away. And part of me thinks the reason why we're seeing that is that TJ Brody has allowed him to bring a little more freedom to his game. Knowing that he's got TJ Brody at his side, he knows he can kind of take a little more of those chances to really push the envelope a little bit of what he can do on the ice.
Got a couple goals. Got a couple goals. But yeah, like, you just look at that pairing as a whole, and I think you got to give a lot of credit to TJ Brody too, who's, he's also playing exceptional and helping prop up Jake Muzzin in a way. I mean, not to say that Muzzin isn't deserving of it being a top four defenseman. But we've seen what it looked like when it's a guy like Justin Hall who's kind of weighing him down. The fact that he has a partner that's, equal to and a little bit better than him, I believe really makes this pairing stand out. And if you want to take a look at the numbers here, Dave, the difference between or the stuff that we're seeing out of Muzzin and Brody, comparative to the rest of the defensemen so far in this series, they've been the best pairing by far. In 46 minutes of play at 5-on-5, they have a near 60 expected goal differential, and that's the shutdown pair. Your shutdown pair, who goes up against your opposition's best players, has a better expected goal differential when they're out there on the ice. I mean, you can't really ask for much more than that. Their expected goals against per 60 is 2, but when they're on the ice, their expected goals for is 2.9. So, they are actually outproducing, out chancing, and getting the puck out of their zone. They're limiting the Tampa Bay Lightning of actually producing much offense at 5-on-5, and they've been the better pairing. They may have been outside of, I guess, probably Hedman and Chernak, probably been the best pairing out of
Mhm.
everybody in this series. I don't think I'm gonna say that, but Muzzin and Brody probably number 2 ahead of Riley and Labushkin. I mean, Riley and Labushkin, surprisingly, not good and probably had their worst game together, but their expected numbers 37.9% expected goal differential with Riley and Labushkin through 41 minutes of game time, 3.2 expected goals against per 60. So it's a full goal more that Riley and Labushkin are averaging, or a full goal that they are expected to give up based on their play, based on the chances that they give up, the quality of chances that they give up, than Muzzin and Brody, and the quality of competition that Muzzin and Brody are facing much higher than Riley and Labushkin. So
Yeah, yeah, I've heard some people really. I don't think it's been talked about enough, but Riley and the Bushing have kind of gotten a little bit of. People are pushing out the envelope of that they haven't been as good as maybe we've thought or if we
yeah,
think they haven't really
yeah,
been. It hasn't been magnified. I think to the point really.